with your cooperation. Pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Nuri Martinez, Paul Kikorian, Marquise Harris-Dawson, soon to be joined by, I believe, Councilman Cedillo. We're going to begin the meeting with general public comment. Let's see if we can find those items. Okay, you'll have a minute since we've got a pretty full agenda this afternoon. But let me call to the table Wayne, Red Chief, and Herman. Mr. Herman.
All right, I go for it.
Economic development. Well, first thing you need, you got to get the LAPD under control because they're arresting people for trying to work. We have people here from Venice that have been arrested for trying to work. I was arrested last year. I was trying to work. The LAPD arrests people for trying to work. You have an out-of-control LAPD, so you cannot develop jobs and have economic opportunity as long as the cops are ran as a criminal organization. I don't see this anywhere in the agenda. Where is it that the LAPD is going to be put under control by a federal consent decree again? It's not here. It's useless. Everybody's afraid. Raise your hand if you're scared of the police department. That's right. They're psychotic. Put them under control, and then we'll get back to the other agenda items.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. The Red Chief Hunt. I want to thank you guys. Today is my 10th anniversary. I brought everybody down here, but like he said, control, federal consent decree. I was arrested on November 10th for nothing. That's part of the budget. When you have to take a person to the hospital and do all those things, and to request that the follow-up be done and to get a new chief of police in, it's time he retire. Anytime that you allow rape in your department and you cost the tax people money and your department is sworn to uphold the law, we need a DNA test for all the LAPD, and that should be put on the agenda. That's very seriously. I always look at it that if that was my mom or if that was my sister. So we need to narrowly tailor the budget for the Los Angeles Police Department and oversee them, and that's part of the City Council's job to do. So on that note, you guys all done a good job, and thank you. It's my first time here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to express this 92 page of the Brown Act. As it repeats itself, the people do not yield their sovereignty to the bodies that serve them. The people insist on remaining informed to retain fucking control over the legislative bodies they have created. 54-950, Chapter 1. I find you in violation of removing us for our entitlements to time under public comment, reducing it to 1 minute. I demand order. I demand recourse and change of that 1 minute to 2 minutes of public comment, because you're in violation of the Ralph M. Brown Act. You're in violation of my First Amendment, my 14th Amendment, and worst case scenario, you are discriminating against a person and all persons with an American disability. So stop fucking with people with disabilities. Give them the opportunity to cooperate and participate in public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for your cooperation and your public comment. That's going to close public comment for the on these general items. Mr. Clerk, would you? Yeah, we're going to take up items 1 through 3 together.
Item number 1 is a Community Redevelopment Agency Los Angeles Bond Oversight Committee report relative to the reallocation of $100,000 in CRA LAX's bond proceeds and amended recommendation from the Bond Oversight Committee in connection with the Reseda-Canoga Park redevelopment project area. Staff has requested an amendment for this item, so I'm going to read those changes into the record.
Thank you.
Amendment number 1 is to approve $51,500 in CRA LA DLA excess bond proceeds funds available in CD3 from the Reseda Canoga Park City Redevelopment Project area to be utilized towards a contract with a consultant to assist in the implementation of projects, programs, and activities identified in the bond spending plan for this project area. Amendment number 2 is to transfer $51,500 from CRA LA excess non-housing bond proceeds fund number 57D, account 22L9PT, Reseda Canoga Park Taxable and City Administrative Officer, Fund 110, Contractual Services Account 3040, to fund the use of consultant services along with up to $51,500 to assist in the planning and implementation of projects, programs, and activities identified in the bond spending plan for this project area.
Okay, we've got some public.
I still need to read items 2
Oh,
and
I'm
3.
sorry,
into the
please
record.
continue.
Item number 2 is a CRA LA Bond Oversight Committee report relative to the allocation of $1 million in CRA LA DLA excess bond proceeds from the Adelante Eastside project area to be utilized to improve public infrastructure. And item number 3 is a CRA LA Bond Oversight Committee report relative to the allocation of $184,946 in CRA LA excess bond proceeds from the Watts redevelopment project area and $15,054 from AB 1290 for the purchase of real estate.
Okay, then we're going to have some public comment from 3 individuals. Wayne, Herman, and Red Chief. Please come forward. You each have a minute.
Yeah.
That ain't right. What's that?
Okay,
Don't join them, Curran. You're better than that, man.
Wayne, we can do it.
You're better than that, Curran. Don't do that, man.
That's
1
okay.
minute for 3 items.
You got a minute, sir.
You're turning into a gangster. Well, item number 1 is for the piece of shit area of Reseda and Canoga Park. I know that area very well. You don't need $100,000 for anything in that fucking place, okay? It's a waste of time. Vote no. 2, CD14 is slush with money. They get money for everything. Jose Huizar has stacked the deck in CD14. It's taking away from places like CD8 and 9. You shouldn't be limiting me to a fucking minute. You should be fighting for your funds for the black communities in 8 and 9, but you don't give a shit. So now we get to 15, CD15 on item 3. That's Buscaino. So we get 1 fucking minute to talk on 3 items. So vote no on these items.
Thank you.
Don't turn into a gangster.
Thank you. Next, please.
Well, here we go. CD3, the Jew boy, who's not here to represent his $100,000 bid for the CRA LA excesses bond. As you all well know, that CRLA had collapsed. All those redevelopment people had collapsed at one time. Why? Because they were stealing from you, the public, stealing from all of us. That's why you see vacant lots and projects unfinished. I'm not going to talk about the rest of the 2 because Jose Huizar stole from the same process when he didn't provide monies that was allocated for corridor repairs, infrastructure. How dare you? You promised us all this creative development, lighting, construction, and so forth, and yet you failed the simplest duty, infrastructure. And so as a result, you set up a standard of poor performance. You allowed yourself to become a criminal element, providing injustice and violation of our civil rights of stealing from local government, state, and federal dollars.
Thank you.
My main question here is consulting fees. That kind of scares me when the people's money is going out the door for consultant fees. I listened very closely to this, and a consultant's getting $51,000 or something. I think that we have enough people in city government to reduce consultant fee. I think more of you guys need to be responsible for that and take heed in that, because a consultant fee to me is giving away the money, and that's the people's money. So I just have one concern, and that's the consultant fee, the Red Chief Hunt.
All right, thank you for your comments. That will conclude the public comment. Members, unless there is an objection, I'm going to move that we approve items 1, 2, and 3 on consent.
Second.
Okay, being no objection, that will be the order. Item 4, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 4 is an Economic and Workforce Development Department report relative to a request for proposals in connection with the Los Angeles Business Source Center system operators and related matters.
Okay, the business source centers are certainly an important tool in our toolbox. We're going to take some public comment first, and then and we'll take the report from the committee. I'm sorry, from staff. First up, please, Jesse Leon, Philip Starr, Esteban Magmari, and Wayne.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Philip Starr. I'm the Executive Director of Managed Career Solutions, and we operate the Harbor and Hollywood and Mid-City Business Source Centers. We're currently recommended to operate Harbor, Hollywood, and East. We want to support the recommendations of the department and the auditor, the city auditor, or the CAO. We note that in the East, where we will be a new operator, we scored 16 points higher than the current operator score and 12 points higher than the other proponent. We intend to bring our loan program to the region. We currently provide loans to businesses in the area and are very excited to have the opportunity to have an actual office in the area funded by the city so that we can promote business opportunity and economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, he pretty much said it all, so I'll just go along with what he said in his comments. Thank you. My name is Esteban R. Magallanes.
Okay, great.
Oh, nice. Yes, more poverty pimp issues. Business resource centers. For what? Nobody wants to open a business here, so you have to bribe people to come here. That is not a business model. That's a suicide business model. Listen to Donald Trump. Listen to what he's saying. Business comes where business wants to go. They don't want to come to a city like this. Look at the NFL. A man is wearing a Rams hat. They learned the truth, and I told them the truth. And that's why they're not building that fucking stadium here. They're building that stadium somewhere else with a black mayor who understands economic issues and is not a racist. Mayor Butts. Go to Mayor Butts. Go to him today and say, Mayor Butts, please fix LA City. Thank you for taking the Rams to Inglewood. God bless Mayor Butts.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Herman, Red Chief, and Alex Guerrero.
Good morning, Alex Guerrero, Senior Vice President, VEDC. On December 4, 2015, EWDD wrote to us regarding our 2 business source centers, North and West, saying, based on your score, your proposal is recommended for funding. The award was based on a cumulative score of 83 and 82, respectively. Also on December 4, VEDC was advised that based on your score, your proposal for the South RFP was not recommended, and your South score is 74. Not surprisingly, all 3 proposals were exactly the same, highlighting the superior qualifications and track record of VEDC. Why then, in the case of South Valley, would the score be 74? VEDC previously appealed to EWDD based upon flawed validity and improper process of the scoring and was rejected out of hand. We appeal again to the Council Committee to recognize the lack of integrity in the process and the need to put aside the EWDD decision on the South Valley Business Score Center. We are asking that our proposal be reread, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, isn't it obvious? Business centers, a system of operations? No, let's talk about a suspension. Knowingly doing business. DBA for embezzlement, theft, forgery, falsification, fabrication of records, and perjury. Does that sound familiar? Let's talk about fraud, bribery, and conspiracy, the best of them all. Knowingly that there are no businesses willing to stay in Los Angeles, as you heard the first speaker, Mr. Wayne Spindler, pointed out. I'm not going to elaborate any further. Maybe you should take advice from other cities that actually have a municipality that works, that is for the people, we the people, under the sovereignty of the Brown Act. Then maybe you can learn how to develop an economic workforce that actually is not discriminatory towards people who are disabled, towards people who are elderly, and other fucking people.
Thank you for your comments.
The Red Chief Hunt on the record. Okay, here's the thing about it. South Central, the harbor, and central area downtown really need resource centers. They need not only resource centers, they need a viable way to get people back to work and housing and things like that. So if you can put that all together, housing, resource centers, and jobs for the people, I think we can accomplish something. That's the way the proposal need to be written. Jobs, travel, and housing, and the resource centers should provide all of those three. So on that note, I think that if you guys are taking proposals to do something, let's consider the jobs, let's consider transportation, and let's consider housing for the homeless so we can really get LA back to working. If you guys go to the center towards that, then bring the resource centers where they're needed at, and that's from San Pedro to the Central Division, the Red Chief Hunt.
All right, thank you. Last three comments on this item. Frank Villalobos, Henry Leiron, and Jesse Leon. Henry Leyva.
Honorable, distinguished, this is the man, bro. Humble man. Needs to show up. Good afternoon. My name is Henry Laban. I'm the program manager for Los Angeles Business Source Center in East Los Angeles, and I work for Boundary Planners Incorporated. We've served the area for over 16 years in economic development. We appealed the appeals process through our RFP submittal and were agreed upon by the review committee, and the RFP was remanded on 2 different occasions. We're here to appeal to you. We are the best provider and one of the longest providers of economic development services in the east side of Los Angeles. We're currently working in Highland Park, Lincoln Heights, Boyle Heights, and Atwater. We look to you to rectify the situation that we've appealed, and we ask that you make us the recommended provider for the east side of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Frank Villalobos, Barrio Planners. Thank you for the opportunity to come and appeal, having already gone to the appeal process twice and were remanded with 3-0 votes by the department. We are here now because on the third one, we asked that we be sent here in order to appeal our case directly to you, to City Council. We are, in fact, the creators of Mariachi Plaza. It's something that came out of our nature, our head. It came out of our culture. And it's one of the hottest economic development opportunities in Los Angeles today. It happens to be in the east side because we're Mexican. We're from that community. And we have made our community thrive. We want to do the same thing to the north in Lincoln Heights. We're proposing a streetcar system that will link to South LA. And we are doing the same thing in Highland Park, where we want to offer opportunity for the community there. Please consider our appeal.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Jesse Leon, CD14. I'm here to express our office's concerns that were brought up by Barrow Planners, who is the existing Eastside area service provider for the Business Source Center program. Barrow Planners has been an invaluable community partner to the Eastside for decades and is exceptionally qualified to provide the services outlined in this RFP. In particular, there are two areas that we would like to highlight. First, Barrow has consistently scored as one of the top performing service providers, not only for the Eastside, but citywide. In fact, other agencies have sought Barrow's mentorship throughout their own application process and implementation of their own programs. Second, Barrow Planners program design is specifically tailored to meet the needs of the clients in the Eastside service area. Not only does its staff have the necessary educational and professional backgrounds to deliver quality services to the Eastside, Barrow staff is active with local chambers of commerce, has relationships with small businesses and throughout the Eastside, and is bilingual. We strongly support Barrow Planners' concerns that were brought up to our office and support any actions this committee takes or will take to re-examine the concerns brought up by them here today.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, that will conclude the public comment. We'll ask the EWDD and the CAO to come to the fore. And we'd like to get your report.
Sure. Good afternoon. Sorry. Shafi Amir from the Office of the CAO. Before you is a CAO report recommending approval of the results of the Economic and Workforce Development Department's request for proposals for the LA Business Source Center system. The contracts would be for 9 different centers, one for each of the 9 service areas, provided by 5 contractors, and they're recommended for approval in the attachment to the CAO report as laid out. Each contract term would be for 12 months from April 2016 through March 2017 for 4 additional 12-month renewal options for a maximum of 5 years total for the contract. The funding amount for 1 year is $4.5 million or $500,000 per contractor in community development block grant funding, which is included in the proposed 42nd year program year comp plan, which is supposed to be scheduled for council tomorrow for approval and consideration. The continuing funding, though, after 1 year would be subject to grant availability of future comp plans. EWDD has been operating the LA Business Source Center since 2011. The current LA Business Source Center service contracts expire on March 31st at the end of the current month, and the request for proposals was issued on September 21st, 2015, and the appeals process was concluded on February 28th, 2016. EWDD selected and recommends 9 proposals for funding based on their scores found in the attachment to the CAO report. The CAO recommendations before you seek approval of EWDD's recommendations for the 9 contracts and an instruction to EWDD to report to Council and Mayor for allocation approval if any additional funds are considered for the business source centers. Thank you, and if you have any questions, we have EWDD here as well to answer them.
In the proposal, we talk about startup and micro enterprises. How do you define both of those?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Micro and the micro enterprises, startup and micro enterprises, one of the categories of review.
Good afternoon, Meg Barclay with EWDD. Microenterprises are businesses with 5 or fewer employees, one of whom owns the business, that have a net operating income of less than $200,000 a year annually. A startup would be a business that has less than a year's operating history.
Attachment 3 shows that about 1,184 jobs were created by the operating businesses and startups. Does this number represent the total number of jobs created in the city?
Oh, just for the 14-15 program year, we wanted to show you the data that we collect. That was, and the last full year we had was for April 1st, 2014 through, it was the 13, I believe it should be the 13-14 program year. It's the last full program year that we have on record.
Okay. And again, just to clarify, describe the specific terms and types of services that are going to be offered through these through business source centers.
Sure. The business source centers provide access. They provide training, a variety of trainings. Sorry, excuse me. Let me find the the list of them. I had it with me earlier. They provide a number of standard trainings across all of the business source centers. They also provide access to capital where businesses can come and work with them on getting a loan, helping them package a loan, making sure that they can qualify for a loan. They also provide services to help businesses, especially new businesses, develop a business plan to be, a successful business. One moment, please. Sorry, I have the RFP here somewhere. So the trainings that they provide include entrepreneurial workshops, fiscal management, marketing and social media, technical training, e-commerce, employee training, and green clean tech transitions. And the services include business needs assessment, one-on-one consulting, business plan development, market assessment, site finding assistance, lease negotiation assistance, small business legal considerations, and networking.
Now, the workforce centers are another important investment that we've made. Are there any direct relationships between the workforce centers and the business source centers?
Yes, business source centers are required to have a partnership with at least one work source center, and we require that they have a signed MOU with that work source center within 30 days of contract execution.
Okay, great. Members, any questions, comments?
I have an item for this.
Well, now's a good time,
Now's a good time?
to bring it up. Yep.
Mr. Chair, with consultation from the City Attorney, Noreen Vincent, let me offer the following with respect to audio planners. They are an icon of our community. They are organic to our community. They have their roots in Los Angeles, in Boyle Heights, and they have a long relationship in the community. They have put forth their performance in the Boyle Heights and the East Los Angeles area. Our office has been working with Councilman Huizar to raise these concerns. We have a satellite office in our district, CD1, and so with respect to only this item as it reflects to East LA, we would like to pull back the bid for this area only, and for the purposes of transparency and fairness, we want to send the bid out for this area again with help and collaboration to resolve all the questions that have been raised. We think that this will result in the types of results that the process is intended. When the process doesn't serve the substantive results that we want, then we know that there's problems with that process. Therefore, I would move to ask the department to continue the current contract on a month-to-month basis with the current provider until we finalize the results for the subsequent RFP.
Okay, so your amendment is to substitute the proposal for the East Los Angeles area
Correct?
at this time?
Correct. So that is that, and to move to have the department continue the current contract on a month-to-month contract with the current provider until we finalize results for the second RFP.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Harris-Dawson?
Yeah, I'd like to second Mr. Cedillo's motion, and just raises a flag. This is the second day in a row for me, yesterday in housing and now today in economic development, where we have organizations with demonstrated ability where there has been no material change at the organization. In other words, it's not as if people have gone away or they lost their building or something substantial has happened. And we're brought proposals and said, well, somebody else scored higher than them. And it just, for me, it just raises real questions about the process and the product that it produces, because it flies in the face of common sense, both in this case and in the case yesterday with Community Build. That suddenly someone appears on the scene, and in the case of Community Build, it was two organizations appear on the scene, and it's our judgment that they're better at doing the same work that's received high marks from the evaluation that the city conducts. So I just want to make a note of that and enter that into the record.
Okay, any other comments?
On this particular point, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what was considered yesterday, but I think my tendency is to trust the process that we give our staff to do in evaluating proposals. And we have an RFP process in order to test the marketplace and to see what is out there. And even if an incumbent bidder might not have changed, maybe there are new opportunities out there for better service. That being said, we also know that can be a great deal of subjectivity in any evaluation process, and I think if the proposal is not to substitute our judgment for staff, Mr. Cedillo, as I understand it, the proposal is to open it up for an RFP process again and have staff do an evaluation process again. I'm willing to support that. I would just say that it's incumbent upon us to determine whether there are defects in the process. And if there are, then we have to address those defects. I don't think it's appropriate for us to substitute our judgment for staff's unless there is some flaw inherent in the process. And if I may, not to this motion, but to another area, if I may speak to it, Mr. Chairman, I do want to ask a question about this process with regard to the VEDC bids, if I may, because there were 3 essentially identical proposals that were scored, 2 of them almost the same, and then the third fairly dramatically differently. So I'm wondering, why that would have been that proposals that are almost exactly alike would have come out of the process with different scores at the end of that process.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the review panels, but we did have 2 different, we had the same review panel actually reviewed the North Valley and the West Valley applications, and it was a different panel that reviewed the South Valley applications. We split the applications between panels just based on kind of workload, and but we did make sure to have where there was more than one application in a particular service area, the same panel reviewed all of the applications for that surface area to try and control for differences between panels themselves. So it's possible that panel may have just, I don't know, been a tougher grader. But that panel was different than the panel that graded the other or scored the other 2 applications.
So where applications are essentially identical, are there any safeguards that we have within our RFP system to ensure that we eliminate as much of the subjectivity as possible and evaluate like applications in a like way, regardless of who's sitting on the panel?
We made every effort to try and do that. All of the panelists used the same scoring tool for all of the applications that they reviewed. They all received the same training on the same day on how to use the scoring tool in the morning. They all scored all of the applications on the same day. We tried to factor out as much difference as we could. At the end of the day, you have people that are reviewing these things, and they may just be, they're different from one another, but we tried to control for that as much as possible and be specific on the scoring tool and specific in the instructions of how to apply the criteria.
Any other comments?
I have a question. I'm trying to understand the intent of the program. Is the intent of the program that the city should take a one-size-fits-all approach to these business sources, or are we trying to fit the needs of the community which they're trying to service?
The narrative factors kind of balanced that. So we have a whole narrative factor within the RFP that goes around demonstrated ability, so their operating history, providing the services that are described in the RFP, and then another factor that's all about their program design and approach. So, and that is more specific to the community itself. How does that approach fit the community? How have they made the case that they're providing the right approach for the community they're trying to serve? And then the other factor is around fiscal operations and just
So with
how do
this
you operate?
particular application was, since they're, they contend that the application was exactly the same, it's 3 different areas that we're talking about in the valley. So were they tailored to meet, was it identical across the board, or was the application intended to serve the particular needs of that area that they were trying to get the contract for?
There were pieces where the RFP requested, discuss your approach in light of the community that you're proposing to serve. We actually, as EWDD staff on the Business Source team, did not review the applications because we were trying to, again, factor out any particular ongoing relationship with any of the existing providers. So I'm not familiar with the specifics of each individual application, but I know the RFP did, in certain pieces of the narrative questions, talk about how your approach, meets the needs of the community that you're proposing to serve.
So it could have changed slightly depending on what the needs of that particular community were and how they were trying to address it in their application.
It could have, yes.
Any other questions? Mr.
So,
Harris Dawson.
just a clarifying question to follow up on Councilmember Martinez's question. The applications were exactly the same, or they were different in the narrative sections?
Like I said, I'm not familiar with the specifics of each individual application. We asked for a narrative that was responsive to the community that they were proposing to serve in certain spaces.
Okay, any other questions, members?
Yeah, just let me conclude, if I may, that I also respect the incredible work of the staff. There's no question. This is not to criticize the staff. I don't think the staff gets enough credit. We're very demanding on you. We give you all these requests, and we think of things off the top sometimes, and then ask you to come back and respond when it's not even clear what we're asking for. I really do appreciate the work of the staff. However, at the end of the day, it's us, the members, who have to make those decisions in the context of our familiarity and intimacy and relationship with our district. I mean, we get elected to do that and to make those decisions. And so I think making a different decision on occasion, that we insert not our judgment of your process, but more our judgment of what the results should be for our district, is what we're doing. I saw that yesterday. It was very evident yesterday and today that sometimes the process doesn't serve the results that, from our perspective, really meets the needs of the community or the expectations of the community, the standards of the community. And so that's what we're doing here, not so much objecting to your hard work and what you've done, but more so ultimately we have to make that final decision, get a decision that reconciles your work with our understanding of the community. I think that's what we're doing. That's the spirit of our motion, and I offer that motion.
All right, thank you. I too want to just thank staff and the proposers for their hard work. A lot of effort and energy went into it. But members, without objection, we're going to approve the CAO report recommendations as amended by Council Member Cedillo. If there are no objections, okay, that will be the order. Thank you. Next item, item 6. Mr. Clerk.
Item number 6 is a Department of Convention and Tourism Development report relative to requests for information in connection with developing a hotel on the Convention Center campus.
Okay, let's take 3 comment cards. Wayne, Herman, and Red Chief. Please come forward.
Okay, so we have the Department of Convention and Tourism Development report relative to request for information in connection with developing a hotel on the Convention Center campus.
This is a joke, sir.
Fiscal impact statement submitted. Yes. Community impact statement non-submitted. So What is this crap? Convention center. Take a fucking wrecking ball to that thing already. Tear it down. Mr. Marquise Harris, tear down the convention center campus. It's a piece of shit. We don't need it. It's a white elephant. It is a white elephant in a black district. Tear down that son of a bitch and build a new stadium for the Dodgers.
Thank you.
Now, in question, Ms. Nuri interrupted the speaker. Is that gibberish unconstitutional?
Mr.
I am.
Wait. Let's have some order.
I just want to reconstruct what the Brown Act's about, that's all.
Chair, yeah, let's talk about the Brown Act. So I recognize the First Amendment and the rights of people, but unintelligible gibberish is not protected speech, and this is too serious a meeting, and the subject matter is too serious to entertain the theatrics that are attached to this gibberish and not protected by the First Amendment. There is no case law, there's no standing, and there's no substance here that meets the standards of the First Amendment. So I think Ms. Martinez, Councilmember Martinez, was right to point this out. The gibberish is not protected speech.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just add a point of order. Mr. Herman in particular likes to make semi-literate references to the Brown Act, but his arguments with the chair are inherently out of order. When he's here to speak about a particular agenda item, arguments with the chair, conversations with Ms. Martinez, any other statement other than what relates to the agenda item is inherently out of order. He had his opportunity at general public comment to make whatever adolescent comments he wanted to. This is about this issue. He must speak about this issue, or he should go back to work at his high school where he works and get back to work. But this is not the time for him to make comments to you about the Brown Act.
Thank you.
May I begin?
Mr. Herman, you may.
Now, regarding tourism and development, we all know that the white elephant still stands, and developing such hotels doesn't create new jobs. It creates poverty, underwage poverty, created by poverty pimps just like this commission, who doesn't pertain to the public, whose interest is in higher wages, better benefits, better strategies of gaining for their families in the future, but rather you poverty pimps make it understandable that tourism and development and relative requests for information is connecting to their well-being. You do more harm with all my gibberish, and who gives a fuck where I work? I don't have to work. I'm disabled, asshole.
Okay, let's continue on with this exciting topic. The Convention Center Hotel, RFI, is a important component in our efforts to revitalize and to continue to expand the Convention Center and its activities and operations.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, or Council, thank you very much for having us again here today to talk about this important project. You recall back in June, you authorized us to go out for an RFI, request for information or interest, for a possible hotel on site. We retained the firm of Jones Lang LaSalle. Mr. Tony Peterman here is today to report back on the results of that request for interest. Before he starts, let me bias it a little bit by saying that I've been doing this for 40 years. I've spent most of my career out begging businesses to come to whatever city I've ever been in. This is one of the rare opportunities where I've had such overwhelming interest by hundreds of million-dollar projects wanting to come into the city. I mean, they were calling every day, how's it going, when can we start? So I've never in my entire career been as impressed with the amount of interest that we've received in this particular project. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Peterman to give you the results of his work, and then we'll circle back and answer questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe you all have a copy of the handout. And this one, the version page.
Move closer to the microphone, please. Move closer to the microphone so we can hear you.
This version that we're going to talk about, or on page 2, it says LA's RFI Results, so hopefully that's the one you all are looking at. In summary, the RFI was issued in late last year. It was requested back in February. And what came back was 7 responses. And this was a non-mandatory process, so teams that might have been interested and may still, if it goes further, be interested in this project didn't have to submit, but 7 did. And 3 or 4 of the most active hotel developers, large, full-scale convention hotel developers in the country responded, as well as some other good ones, well-funded organizations. The flags that were proposed were, I'll start with Dolce, Hilton, Hyatt, Omni, MGM, and Starwood. Starwood is Westin and a bunch of other flags. Bellagio was part of the MGM team. And in our experience, our firm has been working on these for about 20 years. It's a very good response. And on page 3, you can see, we won't go through the detail, pages 3 and 4, who responded. I'll just go over their names and then where they're from and maybe what they've done. The Drew Company out of Boston, they've been selected to develop the new headquarter hotel in Atlanta. And they did most of the development work in the Seaport District in Boston. Gatehouse Capital out of Dallas. They did locally here, they did the W Hotel and Residences. JWM, it's a smaller group out of Texas. The next one is Lowe, based out of Los Angeles. They did, their team with Garfield Public Private, and together their team did convention hotels in Puerto Rico and Kansas, as well as some other locations. The last 3, MGM out of Vegas. They are actually doing a project right now, a 3,000 room convention type project along suburban DC in Maryland. It's a very aggressive project. Omni Hotels out of Dallas. Omni is one of the few flags that actually develops themselves. It's owned by an individual, that flag now. And recently they opened Nashville Convention Headquarter Hotel, one in Dallas, and they are developing one in Louisville, Kentucky as we speak. And the last firm, John Portman and Associates out of Atlanta, they were selected by the city of Miami Beach to build that large headquarter hotel. They did Charlotte, San Diego, San Francisco, a bunch of others. So they were the teams, and if you see on the next page, page 5 is visually some of the projects they've worked on. And the following page, page 6, is a brief listing of some of the collective experiences these teams have either developed, designed, constructed, and we just put that in there for your information. I'm sure you've been in many of those. This process, really one of the unique components of this process was the RFI open house we had. It's pretty typical for a city to have a pre-proposal meeting. We did a little differently. We had folks come in. We spent 3 hours in the convention center. Bud, Sam, Tom, all kind of opined on the expansion project, talked about the vision for the project and the district as a whole. And the developers, who almost to a person were in attendance, they spent their time and resources to come to the open house. They got it, because when we asked from the RFI, the really substantive thing that we asked for was, what do you see here? We didn't ask for pretty pictures at this point. Well, what do you see? And they got the vibrant urban experience, the outdoor spaces, the appeal, livability, lively streetscapes. That's the kind of language that came back in the RFI. So probably one of the biggest issues outstanding, and this is the last slide, and we can open up the Q&A, is the site. You see on slide 9. In the RFI itself, we had proposed site A or B and kind of provide your feedback on which sites you would prefer as a developer. And really what came out of that was, out of A and B, no one selected B. Everyone selected A. I don't think that was a big surprise. But what came out was site C, there was some strong interest there. So that's probably something, if this process goes forward, that's probably something to explore if it makes sense. And with that, that's kind of the RFI process in a nutshell. Open it up.
Okay, we'll take some questions. Let me just start, though. We've been hearing about the importance of a hotel rooms. And I know we're still struggling in that, but we're making some progress. Talk about the significance of a hotel, though, at the convention center. We've been talking about hotels around the convention center. Any particular significance of having one at the convention center?
Yeah, I don't think there's any hotel as good to a convention center as a hotel connected to a convention center. Remember, we have school teachers and accountants and nurses coming in from all over the nation. They don't know LA. They hear stories about the traffic. They get worried about being downtown. Sometimes they're having formal occasions. Sometimes they're having early morning or late evening business sessions. And so the hotel they would prefer to be at is the hotel closest to the convention center. We are very, very underserved with hotels close to the convention center. We had, when we started this, about 3,000 hotel rooms close to, within a quarter of a mile, half a mile of the convention center. We set a goal of being 8,000 rooms within walking distance by 2020. We're now we can see on the horizon 6,000 under construction or on the drawing boards. So we got to get these last 2,000 to get to our goal. Even if we get to 2,000, we will still be way behind San Diego, Anaheim, San Francisco, and these other cities who have more mature convention centers. So all hotel rooms are good. Hotel rooms right on the convention center site are the best. And frankly, we're doing a lot of work to make it a better convention center, but if we don't have the hotel rooms, it doesn't make any difference to do the convention center, quite frankly. If you can't put people up, you're not going to get the conventions people to come into your meeting rooms and your exhibit halls. So of all the things that we're doing, we think the on-site hotel is the single most important thing we can do to make this convention center a better economic engine for the city.
And we're talking about a construction period of about 12 or 18 months from when we break ground. Put it that way.
Big hotel. It's we've required a minimum of 1,000 rooms and 100,000 square feet of exhibit space. I think we'd use 2 years, a little over 2 years.
18 to 24 is probably typical.
I remember when we were doing the JW Marriott, the steel went up 1 floor a week, so 54 weeks just to get the steel up. So these are big hotels. So 18 to 24 months construction.
Okay. Comments? Any comments, members, at this point? Let me just say, first of all, it's very positive to see the number of responses and, high quality, credible, proven track record responders, I think, is significant. 10 years ago, we had a tough time attracting hotels into LA, and of course now we are in an important boom. That's why it's exciting to hear and see that there is a real genuine interest. Just a few points of clarification on this project and next steps. I want to clarify that responses to the RFP can include some incidental branded residential, such as the Ritz-Carlton with housing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. From a planning perspective, the city considers condos inside a hotel to be part of the hotel. So you take, for example, the JW Marriott and the Ritz-Carlton has 1,003 hotel rooms and 224 condos. So even though this committee directed that residential not be considered a part of the overall P3 business plan, whether it's P3 or whether it's the conventional plan, branded residential inside a hotel is considered a part of the hotel. They have the same union housekeepers and security guards, and the hotel probably, they don't have Airbnb. If people want to rent their condo, they rent it through the hotel. So it's
But it doesn't require any new zoning or any
No new
special zoning or
nothing.
any special treatment.
It's just a permitted use within a hotel.
And let's clarify also about commercial, retail, and office space. Are those going to be permitted in this project?
Yes, sir. Absolutely permitted and encouraged. Again, you look at other projects, the Intercontinental under construction is 900 hotel rooms, 400,000 square feet of office space. I don't know that we have that kind of demand for office space in that area, but clearly you would have a hotel wrapped at the ground level, in particular with retail, restaurants, and there, I think there is a case for hotel or for office in this area. Downtown has still a surplus of office, but there are people who have reason to want to be around the sports and entertainment district. The Clippers are out negotiating new office space off campus because they've outgrown their space. Even AEG now has office space off campus because they've outgrown their space. So there could be some, in addition to hotel, restaurants, retail, there could be some demand for office that would also be permitted within this project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo your comments about it's very exciting to see this response. I think it's an indicator that people with real money to invest who have a dog in the fight are seeing Los Angeles in a very bullish viewpoint. And people are prepared to invest in this city because they see the future is one of opportunity here. I think that the robust response that we've had to the RFI, together with your comments, Mr. Overham, about the importance of being a convention center adjacent hotel, and all the competitive advantages that gives to a hotel over a hotel that's a mile or so away, caused me to want to look very closely at any subvention agreements that there may be that are associated with any of these hotel proposals. It does appear that there's strong demand for hotel investment in this area. A new convention center, a burgeoning downtown, a spiking tourism industry in Los Angeles all suggest to me that we have a strong future for the hotel industry. And so I just feel it's important to say from this point that the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee is going to be really concerned about any significant subvention to subsidize hotel investment in an area where they're likely to make, especially with condos on the top and everything else, they have a very good chance of getting a strong return on investment. So I just want to get that out there.
We're on notice.
It's out there. It's out there, Mr. Finance Chair.
We're on notice. We understand, and that will be a part of, obviously, any report back.
Mr. Cedillo.
Since we're wearing our other committee hats here, let me, as Chair of Housing, subventions aside, I'll defer to the Chair of Budget on that. Very exciting, though, to hear about the integration of housing. As you know, we need 100,000 units of housing, and every opportunity, every discussion that we can have about large numbers, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 units integrated into this hotel is very exciting. We need housing at every level, and that includes the highest levels. And so that to the extent we can get luxury condos at this hotel is exciting, because that means it creates more opportunity for us to build affordable in other locations throughout the city. And I think we've already seen it on the other side of the campus at AEG at the Ritz-Carlton, that this is a very doable reality, and that there is a market for this. And so,
if I could add just one thing on that, Councilman Harris Dawson referred to me, a developer who I met with last week who wanted to explore, just to do some brainstorming about a hotel with workforce housing. I mean, this is obviously on-site campus is going to be a convention hotel, but he wanted to explore the possibility of hotel combined with workforce housing. And we went out and walked several blocks and talked about it. I think there are just all kinds of opportunities for that type of vertical mixed use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris Dawson. Any comments? Okay, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Without objection, we're going to instruct the Convention and Tourism Development Department, CLA, and CAO, with assistance from the Bureau of Engineering and Planning, to draft a request for proposals for a convention center hotel, including the option to place branded residential and retail on site, and to report back to this committee in 60 days. Authorize the Convention Tourism Development Department to hire a contractor to assist in the request for proposal process related to the LA Convention Center Hotel project, and to provide consulting services on matters related to the Los Angeles Convention Center Hotel project, and authorize the Convention Tourism Development Department to reduce $150,000 from the salaries general account 001010/48 fiscal year 2015-2016, and to increase the contractual services amount, the contractual services account 003040/48 for fiscal year 15-16 by the same amount in compliance with recommendation number 2 of this report, and authorize the Convention Tourism Development Department to make any technical adjustments or corrections as necessary to transactions included in the report to implement the intentions of the mayor and city council. Without any objection, members, that will be the order. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your for the presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now shifting to agenda item 5, minimum wage.
Item number 5 is a CLA-CAO report relative to follow-up policy elements in connection with the citywide minimum wage ordinance and related matters.
Members and public, 8 months ago, seems like years, 8 months ago, the City Council approved historic legislation when it passed the Los Angeles minimum wage. I was honored to be one of the authors of that motion and to chair the committee, which held several hearings both in this building and throughout the city to debate the issue. Now, as we near implementation, we must wrap up some of the outstanding issues surrounding minimum wage. One of the issues is paid sick leave, something that I committed to from the very beginning, along with my colleagues. For a while, minimum wage is a large step in the right direction to helping low-wage workers. It does not protect them from being fired or taking a pay hit in cases of illness that they or their family members may experience. I personally cannot imagine being stuck in a job where I couldn't take time off because I had the flu or had to care for my wife if she were ill. And it's right that everyone sitting up here, it's a right that everyone sitting up here enjoys, and many of you in the audience enjoy, and have even come to expect from your employers. Not only is this policy the right thing to do, but it is a smart thing to do. When workers are sick, they cannot perform at their utmost ability, and they risk their coworkers getting ill, as well as customers with whom they come in contact with. So it's just common sense that we should have workers on the job, that we should not have workers on the job when they are ill. Let me remind you that paid sick leave has been a part of every Los Angeles living wage policy since we enacted the original legislation almost 20 years ago. So it's not a new idea, and it's not going to break anyone. Having said that, I hope that we can strike a fair policy that works for both businesses and workers. After we hear from my colleagues, we're going to take some public comment in order to hear your thoughts, after which we will hear from the CLA. It's my intention to continue this item for 2 weeks to allow for additional public comment to be submitted so that everyone who'd like to voice their opinions will be afforded the opportunity to do so. So colleagues, if you've got any opening comments or thoughts? Okay. All right, let's go to public comment. We've got Marilyn Schmazzy. I'm sorry. Smetsmay?
That's my husband's name.
Easy for you to say. Maya Paley, George A.D., and Elizabeth Hawley. You have 1 minute, please.
Okay, my name is Marilyn Zatmary, and I'm on the board of the National Council of Jewish Women. I am here to urge you to support a sick day policy for the city of Los Angeles beyond what the state of California offers. As a woman who ran a business in the entertainment business in Los Angeles for many years, I know how important it is both for employees and employers to take time off when they are sick. I have heard many stories about workers in Los Angeles not being given sick days are enforced, and I feel that adding on this policy in Los Angeles will ensure sick days are enforced along with minimum wage enforcement. I also want to highlight the importance of an expanded family. Many of the women I know, many of the people who work for me did not have family in Los Angeles but had close friends who could take care of them when they were ill. I think this is really important that the definition of family is expanded to include those kind of situations. I thank you.
Thank you.
Read the bill.
Hi, I'm Maya Paley. I'm the Director of Legislative and Community Engagement at the National Council of Jewish Women, LA. I'm also on the steering committee of the California Work and Family Coalition, as well as the Los Angeles Coalition for Reproductive Justice, and we also see this as a reproductive justice issue. I just want to agree with Marilyn. We're very excited and commend you for bringing up this policy. We want to see a broad definition of family included, and enforcement as well, and just very hopeful that we'll get this policy through. So thank you.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Hawley with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, or VICA. VICA represents around 400 local businesses. We oppose mandated employment practices which raise costs for businesses and ultimately for consumers and residents of Los Angeles. We thank the committee for delaying voting on this issue. It's too important to rush through. California already has paid sick leave requirements, and requiring additional leave is another cost which will hit restaurants and small businesses the hardest. We know from reports that restaurants and small businesses are already most likely to feel the effects of a minimum wage increase. Requiring increased sick leave reduces employers' flexibility to offer other discretionary benefits that meet their employees' needs. We haven't had time to see the effects of the citywide minimum wage increases or of state-level mandated paid sick leave. Piling more costs onto our local business owners without waiting to see what the full effects are is bad for our city. We urge your opposition to mandated paid sick leave at a city level. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold your applause.
Good to see you again. I support the employees in this room and their mission, but just to be clear, we're discussing two entirely different worlds. We're not Walmart or hospitals. The last time we were here, as well as the time before that, I and other independent restaurants had asked the City Council to come visit any of the restaurants in your district to see how operations actually work, so you understand the dynamics of operating below zero to a 5% net margin business, which has now gotten worse. An offer to see in person the difficulty of operating a local business which hires only local labor, provides the lowest barriers to finding employment, operates with longer hours than any other business, with mostly part-time employees paying local rent, selling perishable goods to a local audience. This doesn't include the state sick day mandate, the American Health Care Act, out-of-control workers' comp, an unbalanced state labor commission, a new state labor commission, frivolous lawsuits, endless public scrutiny, and a handful of other costs not mentioned here. 90% of us fail in the first 2 years. Chain restaurants that produce food in other states and ship it here proliferate. Meanwhile, we struggle. This month, I met with one of our esteemed U.S. Democratic Congress representatives who agreed that legislators are not only often but always turning to the unions who don't represent our industry or our employees for answers and directions on labor policy. I think it's time to change that because you represent us too, and we're proud of that, and I just want to make it real.
Thank you.
We can set you up with any restaurants if you to connect you to come visit.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your
Thank you for
comments.
your time.
Thank you. Daniel Coles, Alfred Kepi, Marta Sanchez, and Todd Schwartz.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Alfred Pepe. I represent ACE. I'm here to just talk about the paid sick leave because it's like it's something that is utmost important in my heart. I work for IHSS. I take care of a sick patient, and I will not function if I'm sick. I'm unable to take care of myself. I can't take care of him, and that is why it's important that it's like we should increase this paid sick leave. And again, my daughter, they called me from school to come and pick her up. I cannot leave a patient and then go to the school and pick up my daughter. These are things that is utmost important that we want you guys to just put us in your thoughts, and then if there's a way, we know you guys will find it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marta Sanchez. I'm a member of ACE, and I'm a City 9 District resident, and I also work in City 9 District. And as you know, in my district, a lot of people have no opportunities to get sick because they truly need their jobs to survive and to support their families. And I'm going to use my husband's case to express the urgency. Last August, last year, my husband went into surgery after working 16 years without getting any one single day to get sick. And he had a major surgery. He had to be off job 30 days without receiving any penny, no salary, zero money for the family. I wasn't working at the time, and we find out really difficult to pay the mortgage that month. And we have difficult times right now to pay the property taxes this year because of that month really affect the economic in my family. So I'm urged to support the pay 6 day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Cose. I'm a current worker at Walmart for over 20 years. I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself and behalf of my workers, thousands of Walmart workers in Los Angeles. I have worked for Walmart for over 20 years. Most recently, I worked at the one Walmart on Crenshaw, Baltimore years that they shut down for the past 10 years. Like myself and many of my given several years of work, Walmart, several service at Walmart, excuse me. Today, I want to share you with a reality of working for Walmart. Many Walmart workers have to face difficult decisions each day. We have our loved ones who are sick. We must decide to take care of our health or go to work sick. Recently, Walmart implemented a policy which if you are, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank
you for your comments.
Please urge to pass the sick pay policy.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Todd Schwartz. I own a restaurant in Northridge, California. We've been open for 4 years. It's the first business I've ever owned. We now staff 12 employees. We used to have 14. With minimum wage going up and paid sick leave, we had to lay off 2 to restrict the staff. I also have a mortgage to pay. I also have a family to support. So we need business that is strong as well. As far as the cost of sick day, most of my staff works 5-hour shifts. So doing 3 days in the current rules, they actually end up with close to 5 days, 4.5 days, because 5-hour shifts, 24 hours, you end up with 5 days. If it goes to 12 days, they will each get 17.5 sick days per employee. That cost, which is not insignificant, comes to $17,000 a year to pay employees not to work. We also have a very large student staff. They are able to shift their schedules so that they can accommodate sick days as well as schoolwork. So I just encourage you to think about restaurants, businesses, and youth employment, which is at an all-time low right now.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your comment. John Howland, Ruben Gonzalez, Rosemary Jenkins, and Elizabeth Ben Ashai.
Good afternoon, John Howland with CCA, and thank you for delaying the vote on this matter, Mr. Chair. The report doesn't give a recommendation on the number of additional paid sick days. What we've already heard from several of our members, especially the restaurants, in the short time that we've known about this report is that they're facing a difficult time implementing the new state law on paid sick leave, and this law just took effect. Adding in a large number of sick days when combined with the city's minimum wage increase will exacerbate the negative effects on employment and on employees' benefits. San Diego's ordinance gives employees a maximum 40 hours of paid sick leave per year, and this is a reasonable solution. Also, if this measure is to make sure sick people do not come into work in the service industries will make both their customers and their coworkers ill, then this sick time must not be allowed to accrue to unreasonable levels, and it should not be portable. Employees coming to work when ill so they can bank paid sick time for a cash payout later is counter to the purported reasons for this program. And there should be no exemption for CBAs. As the advocates for the wage increase themselves have said, no one should work for a sub-minimum wage, period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. Whether you believe it was a good move or a negative move when the city of Los Angeles decided to implement a local minimum wage, what cannot be disputed is that you added a significant cost to the bottom line of running a business in the city of Los Angeles. It's a 50% increase in labor costs, not counting the other costs that are connected to wages that go up as well. And right now, business owners are trying to plan and find a way to absorb those costs and hopefully keep on the employees that they have. So please take that as a perspective before you add further regulations that, again, aren't negatives. No one says it's bad to give people sick days. But you have to understand, with these regulations come a cost. And every time you raise that cost, you're making it harder for the business to retain the number of employees, to retain the number of hours they have, to potentially give them benefits, to remain in business, to remain in the city of LA. So don't just take this as sick days are a good thing. Realize that the cumulative impact of all these regulations does have effect on the...
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Benishai. I'm a senior policy analyst at the Center for Law and Social Policy, a national anti-poverty organization. I urge you to support a citywide paid sick days law that guarantees LA workers access to more sick days, strong enforcement, and an inclusive definition of family. The state law is an important first step, but does not go far enough. LA workers deserve to be on par with their counterparts in San Francisco, Emeryville, and Oakland, as well as in the dozens of cities across the country that offer more expansive sick time protection. In 2014, the senior VP of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce described the effects of the city's law on employers as, quote, minimal. By and large, this has not been an employer issue. San Francisco's economy is booming, he said. Surveys of San Francisco and Connecticut employers found that they did not experience negative effects. A DC audit found no evidence that sick days caused businesses to leave the district. Economic data from Seattle, Connecticut, San Francisco, and New York City, where workers earn 5 to 9 days per year, show that their economies have thrived since sick day laws. Please join more than 20 other local jurisdictions that have passed strong sick days laws for their citizens.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rosemary Jenkins. It's commendable that we passed a living wage several months ago, but what must go hand in hand with that is earned paid sick leave. The idea that companies are going to go out of business or there's a tremendous loss in employees just doesn't bear out based upon the studies that she referred to and other studies. Many of these companies across the nation, as well as in other parts of California, are thriving. We cannot, for several reasons, earn paid sick leave for health issues, for safety issues, and for family issues. Not only must the employees be able to take off when they're ill, in part for their own health, but to not communicate disease to other workers or clients, but for their children, for another family member that needs to be taken care of. And there are many jobs that are like construction jobs where people could hurt themselves or others if they were forced to work when they're ill. Thank you.
Thank you. Adina Tesler, Melissa Acoba, Paul Lee, and Diana Lopez. Diana Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, members of the Economic Development Committee. My name is Adina Tesler, and I'm here representing the California restaurant industry. The restaurant industry is the second largest private sector job creator in the state and highly labor intensive. Many of these restaurant employees are young part-time workers that create their own work schedules around school or other commitments. You've heard from some restaurants here today that restaurants are unique in how they have 4 to 6 hour shifts. And when a restaurant employee calls in sick, their shift is covered by another employee that is paid by the employer. In fact, many of our restaurants run software for their employees where they can trade shifts if someone has a final or a vacation or they're not feeling well. So the restaurant industry is still trying to figure out how to deal with the state's paid time off requirement and implementing that. And so we ask that you think about the industry, how it's being impacted by the minimum wage increase, and how increasing the number of paid time off days above the state level would impact the industry as well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Lee. I'm with our Walmart organization, United for Respect at Walmart. Commend the city for bringing forward the paid sick day policy in addition to the actions it took last year to benefit thousands of workers of the city. I want to particularly touch on the issue of enforcement that we're very hopeful and anticipate that the city will move on a paid sick day policy. We feel that enforcement and implementation is critical to a successful program, not only for the paid sick day policy, but also enforcing the minimum wage increase and protecting workers against wage theft. So please, like to urge those of you in the committee and the rest of the City Council to consider an implementation of a robust enforcement program going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Diana Gonzalez, and I'm with the LGBTQ Gender and Reproductive Justice Project at the ACLU of Southern California. California made historic strides last summer with the passage of AB 304, a law providing 3 paid sick days to workers across the state. This was excellent news following our own city's success in passing an ordinance to raise the minimum wage in LA to $15 by 2020. These 2 victories directly support the economic justice necessary for our communities to prosper in California. Too often we see or hear of people or experience ourselves having to work multiple jobs to provide for our families. A $15 minimum wage will soon help address and establish people's ability to obtain the economic right to a livable living wage. Our fellow community members that are low-income workers, that are parents and family caregivers, will soon be able to take advantage of paid sick days, upholding reproductive justice and gender equity in California. However, 3 paid sick days is not enough. Los Angeles workers need more, and we are happy to see this proposal building off of the statewide floor. In the new policy, we urge the committee to uphold a broad definition of family by adopting the federal definition of family, which is children, spouse, domestic partner, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, and any other individual related by blood or affinity whose association with the employee is equivalent of a family relationship. The diversity of LA families requires this definition so that paid sick days work for all workers.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Acoba, and I'm a fellow with the California Work and Family Coalition, as well as a public health educator with Clinica Monsignor Oscar Romero. We have 2 clinics, one in Boyle Heights and another in the Pico Union area. And on behalf of our patients, I thank you for your support for this legislation.
Thank you. Okay, we have Virginia Cassidy, Sarah Walsh, Wayne, Herman, and Red Chief.
My name is Jenya Cassidy. I'm with the California Work and Family Coalition. We're part of a national network of state grassroots organizations working on paid family leave and paid sick days. And we focus on the right of every person to be there for themselves or for their family when they need the most to take a paid sick day. I worked out of San Francisco for the last few years, and San Francisco's policy is really positive. Employers support it right now. It has been not a problem at all, and it's one of the model policies. I think it's, for LA, we really need a strong enforceable law, and we need something that really works for all workers. And it's very important to have a local law that's enforceable. This is happening around the country. There's people all over the country are working for this at the local level, and I think it's really important for the most populous city, Los Angeles, to really take the lead in having a strong policy for workers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Walsh, and I'm here today on behalf of the Motion Picture Association of America and our member companies. At a time when productions are returning to the city to take advantage of the state's expanded production incentive, a citywide requirement to provide additional sick leave would create an additional logistical, financial, and administrative burden for our industry. Motion picture productions regularly film on location throughout the County of Los Angeles in multiple jurisdictions, sometimes on a daily basis. Our productions would have to maintain 2 separate accrual records, one for time spent working in the city and one for time spent working outside the city under the state sick leave policy. Moreover, employees regularly work for multiple employers within a single year, making the tracking of accrued leave time incredibly challenging for employers and industry payroll companies. Our industry collective bargaining agreements provide for generous vacation pay, an additional 4% of straight time earnings added to every paycheck. For an employee who works 40 weeks a year, this equals 8 days paid time off. Industry employees also receive holiday pay and accrue the 3 days of sick leave provided by state law. We believe our compensation model is in keeping with what the council is trying to achieve.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the cards we have. Madam CLA, would you mind coming front and center? and trusted deputies.
Good afternoon, Sharon So, CLA's office. The item before you is an update on certain policy elements related to the minimum wage. I'll be brief since this item is being continued. Primarily, we focused on reporting back on 3 areas related to paid time off, the service charges, and collective bargaining. With regard to paid sick leave, we did review what other cities have done in the state of California. The state currently requires 3 days, 24 hours. It also specifies accrual, minimum accrual requirements, use requirements as well. If on Table 2 of our report, it identifies some of the differences in other cities. If the council were to decide to add additional days or provide benefits greater than the state, an ordinance would be required. We also looked at the entertainment industry. There was an issue brought up with regard to how the entertainment industry, they have a business model where they're paid time, they are actually paid additional time on top of their wages for paid time off. And there's a question posed to the committee if there is a desire to do this, that you can recognize that additional payment as being compliant with any city wage law that you might change. Or, I'm sorry, paid time off. With regard to collective bargaining, we did do a quick survey of some of the cities in the state of California as well as around the nation, and there's a little bit of, there's some cities that have an exemption and other cities that don't, so that's just providing information to you. With regard to service charges, there was a lot of public testimony with regard to service charges and how the restaurant industry is dealing with this. We did look at several cities that actually require the service charges be given to all of their employees, and there are restrictions on how it can be distributed. But this is a very evolving industry right now with regard to service charges and also how surcharges are being imposed by the restaurant business. So we came to the conclusion that this is probably an area that we would not recommend any changes at this time until it works it out, basically. So with regard to, that's a brief summary. We have a couple of recommendations. One recommendation relates to the data analysis and asking departments to assist us in doing the 3-year review that's required under ordinance for the citywide minimum wage. And also, if there is a desire to make any changes to the ordinance as it relates to paid time off, that you instruct the city attorney to draft those changes to the ordinance.
Add anything?
Just a little bit on the data analysis side. As you remember, the ordinance requires the CLA and the CAO to evaluate every 3 years the effects of the law on the economy. So we are working with economists and data specialists to identify the data and make sure that we are collecting data on an ongoing basis. This is something where all of the economists who reported back in the spring of last year that we needed to start now on this process. So we are doing that right now, putting that information together. We're actually pursuing, I understand there might be some interest in some nonprofit foundations to help with the funding and the research. And so we're looking for other resources that we can bring in to help us on this. And we will be reporting back at a future date. The instruction in the report here will ensure that the departments will be responsive in providing data as needed so that this study can move forward.
Okay. There was a couple of questions raised about the definition of family. Is there a definition that's consistent?
Very broadly, most of them.
Broad, yeah.
The most usual one, of course, is immediate family members, uncles, aunts, people that may be in the employee's care. There's some that are a little bit more expansive. They actually go beyond the definition of family. It may even include, like, I think it was Emeryville, that actually allows the employee to take time off for if you have a service animal, for example, and to care for the service animal. So the definitions can vary slightly. The state definition is already pretty broad in itself, but some cities have actually expanded it even further. And if there is a desire for to expand it, that's certainly possible. That would require an amendment to our current ordinance. There is one point.
But our ordinance is currently what? Mother, father, sister, brother,
Correct.
uncle?
Yes.
The normal?
Yes.
Does not include service animals?
No.
No.
No. One thing that we do want to point out with regard to a paid time off policy for administrative purposes, and I think we talk about this a little bit in the report, that if there is a desire to move to a paid time off policy that provides something greater than the state, that it may make a certain amount of sense to follow the state law as much as possible for administrative ease, and so that there isn't any questions or confusion or additional requirements and interpretations of the law. So that is something for this body to consider if there is a desire to expand the paid time off policy.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any thoughts? This report was released on Friday. We got it today, considering it today, and that's why I thought it was be timely if we postpone the consideration until the meeting on April the 12th, because we're giving everybody a chance to look at it, review it, including the business community that's going to be impacted by that. And so, unless there are some questions at this time.
So we're not moving anything today?
We're not moving anything today, no. But if you got some questions, that would be certainly appropriate now. Okay. Okay, then let's, again, I want to thank everyone for your participation and for your attendance. We're going to continue this discussion at our next meeting, and that will be on April the 12th. Okay, so without objection, that will be the order. Mr. Clerk, is there any other business before us at this time?
No, sir.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.